It's one of those Mondays when governors come together and meet. When that happens, you know, it's a big deal to get talking about those things that is said. So for tonight, let's get talking. The governors of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, have met today in Bauchi State. And they met over critical national issues. The PDP governors have demanded that the National Assembly should adopt electronic transmission of results in the proposed Electoral Act Amendment Bill and equally request INEC and all communication bodies to deploy technology and ICT in rural communities before the 2023 general elections. The forum also kicked against attempts to adopt direct primaries for political parties, insisting that this will pave way for massive rigging, citing the 2019 APC primaries as a case study. The governors also condemned the coercion of PDP governors into APC, while also suggesting that the federal government better ways of handling nation's insecurity and economy, amongst other things. The chairman of the PDP governors, of some of them that attended, you will see on your screen in this footage, of course, across the states. They have come from Delta to Rivers and all of them. But after the meeting, the chairman of the PDP Governors Forum was the one who addressed the press and read out the communique on behalf of all the 13 governors who were in attendance, including the Zamfara State Governor, State Deputy Governor. Take a listen to Governor Aminu Tambuwal of Sokoto State, who is the chair of the PDP Governors Forum.
On the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, the governors identified with the need for a free, fair, and credible elections in the country and called on the National Assembly to entrench electronic transmission of results of elections in the nation's electoral jurisprudence. The meeting requested Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, the only body empowered by the Constitution to conduct elections, to deploy appropriate technologies necessary to ensure that the votes of every Nigerian is counted and meant to count. The meeting further called on the National Communications Commission, especially the Universal Service Provision Fund, Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited, NACOMSAT, telephone companies, telcos, and all the relevant stakeholders to ensure that universal access and service of information and communication technologies are provided, especially in rural and underserved areas of the country before the 2023 general election. The meeting condemned the attempt to force on all political parties one method of conducting primaries, that is by direct method only, through the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. The governors noted that the method is prone to massive rigging, as evidenced by a situation where President Buhari scored 15 million votes in the 2018 direct primaries, only to score 15 million votes for the entire country in the 2019 general election. The governors advised that political parties should be allowed to decide whether to use direct or indirect methods of conducting primaries as part of internal democracy in political parties.
So that exactly is just a portion of what the governors discussed. In fact, it's the number one issue they discussed on the issue of election and electoral act amendment, which we will start with. So I'm being joined on the program to break this down for you, dissect this issue, and analyze what the governors of the PDP have said today. They criticize the APC, the Buhari government, on issues of party defection, on issues of economy and security. But we get a sense of what all of this means to you as a Nigerian. Wherever you may be watching, get a seat, everyone. If you will, get a cup of coffee. You will need it for this conversation. I have three wise men from our Abuja studio. Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed is the member of a National Consultative Front and the spokesperson of the Northern Elders Forum. Thank you so much, Dr. Baba Ahmed, for coming tonight. And in the middle is Mr. Jide Ojo, a political analyst. And on the far right there on your screen is Dr. Kach Ononuju, is an economist and a member of the PDP. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming. Let's begin with Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed. And I'd like us to start the conversation with the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. So let's take a look at, again, what the context of what the PDP governors are saying. And that is a portion of that communique, which is right there on your screen. It says that on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, the governors identified with the need for a free, fair, and credible elections in the country and called on the National Assembly to entrench electronic transmission of results of elections in the nation's electoral jurisprudence. Perhaps one area that I would like us to touch on, which I'd like Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed to start with, is where they said the meeting requested Independent National Electoral Commission, the only body empowered by the Constitution to conduct elections, to deploy appropriate technologies necessary to ensure that the votes of every Nigerian is counted and made to count. Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed, let me get your response on this. What's your view on what the PDP governors said?
Well, thank you for inviting me. I think the statement by the governors of the PDP came a little bit too late and is too little for the effect that they want. Let's remind ourselves that these governors have direct access and a huge amount of influence on senators and members of the House of Reps. They could have exercised a lot more influence on some of these people to make sure that the amendments to the Electoral Act was more emphatic in terms of the reforms than just allowing it to get to this stage. At this stage, unfortunately, the APC administration under President Buhari and the National Assembly under President Buhari has effectively strangulated any attempt to create and to give the INEC the scope and the allowance it needs to fully utilize electronic voting as a primary system of voting. What the nation really needs to do is to trust INEC and say INEC should choose the voting pattern that is consistent with the interests of Nigerians, to adopt multiple voting systems and let INEC decide where electronic voting should take place, where non-electronic voting should take place. This is not a new issue. We have been on this for a long time. 2003, I was a secretary of INEC, and even going that far back, we had tried to sell this idea. INEC should be allowed to choose the mode of election. If you don't trust them, then why on earth do you want them to conduct an election? But no, what they did this time is to create a situation where agencies of the federal government, now, this government, agents of this government and the government itself will determine whether we have any form of electronic voting at all. Remember what the amendment says is what the National Assembly is sending to the president, and I'm not sure if the president will even sign that, is that yes, electronic voting can take place, but it is contingent on NCC and other agencies saying yes. So the questions are, when do they say yes or no? Why should they say yes if the government thinks it is not in no interest? How do we know President Buhari would even assent to this watered down provision? Of what value is this if you hamstring an INEC in such a manner that it is now subject to the interest of agencies that report to a president who obviously has an interest in making sure that another party doesn't win an election? Because clearly this is what this is all about. So PDP is raising an issue, but it is raising it in such a manner that suggests that if PDP itself is not really genuinely interested in allowing a free and fair election in the event that it works against them. So that is one of the worrying things for me. It really does not distinguish between APC and APC. These are just two parties that have brought this country down, and that are just playing a game and creating the impression in the minds of Nigerians that they're different. They're not. They are the same two parties. They have brought this country down, and all their comments is only one thing. They are looking at the 2023 election with only one objective. They want every advantage they can get in order to get power. Not to fix this country, but to assume power. Either to continue if you are APC or to get power if you are a PDP. That's my take on this.
Let me bring in Mr. Jidiojo. The PDP is criticizing what part of the amendment, according to the PDP, they're saying that they're condemning the attempt to foist on all political parties one method of conducting primaries, that is by direct method only through the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. And they gave an example of the APC primary. Your take on that?
Okay. How do one engage this? First, I've not cited the copy of the electoral act that was passed. As we do know, there's a need for a conference committee of the two chambers, after which a clean copy will be sent to the president, and after the president has assented to it, we'll be expecting to have a gazetted copy out, and then at the level of civil society, we can engage this properly. But given the fact that the governors in their privileged position could have seen what is passed, but I really would have loved them to tell us whether they are talking of the version passed by the House of Reps or the version passed by the Senate. Be that as it may, assuming without considering that the two chambers actually did say that all political parties should have their primaries as direct primaries, I think it's an infringement on the right of political parties to choose the method of having their own party primaries. I don't think, in my own estimation, I don't think anything is wrong with the provision in the current Electoral Act, which has the Section 87 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended, has given two options to political parties, either direct or indirect primary. And if you want to do direct, it's stipulated the processes that you use to do direct primaries from the ward level down to if you are going to have presidential congresses. So I don't think, as he said in Britain, if something is not broken, you don't need to fix it. I do not know to what ends that the National Assembly deem it fit to legislate to all political parties to choose a particular mode of primaries. I do understand, and at the level of civil society, I would say that our observation have shown that it is that indirect primary is more prone to corruption, because you garner about 2,000, 3,000 people, you can easily bribe them. But if you go direct primaries, in which case either the voting will be done at the ward level or at the polling unit level, and this will involve all members of the party. Maybe some parties will say if you are a financial member, that's when you'll be qualified to engage, to be a delegate or to participate in that. I do understand that indirect primary is more prone to corruption, but be that as it may, I don't think it's right not to give option to political parties and to make it, to insist that it has to be only direct primary. Direct primary, as we know, is much more expensive to organize at the level of political parties. We then will raise the issue of, nomination forms. Because if you are going to do direct primaries and it has to be at the polling unit level or at the ward level, it will cost a lot more to organize these direct primaries. You have to print ballot paper. It's just like you are an INEC on your own. And this will be much more expensive for political parties. Anyway, let me put it this way. Political parties that are serious and who want to organize a genuine party primary, it will increase substantially the cost of conducting primaries. But I think, in my own opinion, I think it will have been best to leave the mode of primaries the way it is in the extant Electoral Act 2010 as amended.
Let me bring in Dr. Kachi Ononuju. Dr. Ononuju, you heard what Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed said there. He said, well, your party, the PDP, and the APC are probably same. You heard what he said. And based on the criticism of the governors on the Electoral Act amendment process, let me get your view. Your governors, according to what Mr. Ojo and Dr. Baba Ahmed said, shouldn't they have prevailed before this time? Is it coming too late?
Thank you very much. I believe that is true. They should have prevailed well before this time. Secondly, to what Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed said, no, we're not the same. The PDP and the APC are not the same. The PDP is a national political party run by Nigerians, that made its mistakes and did quite a lot of things. We embraced Nigeria in a holistic form. The APC is not one. The APC was just something put together as a coalition. When they won, the party was kept away until today. Buhari does not implement policies of the APC. You can see a lot of the things that they're doing, like the ethnic cleansing and all those other issues. I don't believe those things are things agreed to by the APC as a party. So having said that, I will state again, the APC and the PDP are not the same. The PDP is a national political party. The APC is a coalition that came to power, and as it came, President Buhari threw it away and started ruling, embracing the agenda of the Miyetti Allah, not that of the APC. In regards to the Electoral Act, as you can see, they do not want elections to sustain. And I believe what you have seen Ahmed Lawal do, it's intended, because the APC know very well with the way President Buhari has run the country, they cannot win election if they go again for elections. That's why they have done this, so that they will be able to use the long hands to fill the forms. If you ever, as INEC said, that they have the capacity to actually run electronic transfer of results, and you bring them a line item issue saying that we need to buy OEM equipment for such transfer and transmission, you will see that they will not agree to provide that. This very morning, I dealt with this particular issue specifically on a different station, and I told them that if INEC is independent, why would you now make a law to subject INEC to the whims of NCC, which is not an elected body? It is a parastatal made up of appointees, political appointees of the APC. That means whoever the president appoints there, the APC can instruct them to say, no, 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 let them not do this. Don't allow that to happen. The INEC can, if mandated by law, conduct this electronic transfer. Where they say there are no cellular transmission capabilities, of course, the INEC will be able to deploy satellite transmission capability. And they have said they are not challenged. Allow them to do that transmission, because it is at that point of collision that the rigging actually comes in. This tells you that President Buhari and the Senate President, as we all know, do not want to advance the democracy. And don't forget what happened. When Senator Kabiru Gaya saw that Senator Enyina Baribe had made a lot of progress in convincing senators to vote for progress, he panicked, ran to President Buhari, and that was why you saw that ad hoc meeting between President Buhari and the senators, where those who were challenged at EFCC and other places were told that if they vote the way President Buhari wants, their EFCC cases will be cleaned off. Just as you saw, corruption. And those who were challenged abstained from voting, and I can promise you we'll be waiting for them, because I consider that electoral act voting to be the most important democratic duty they were to do in this their tenure. And now they have let us down. All right. They've undermined the hard work
Dr. Ononuju,
you put in.
Yeah, you've said something that is very categorical. I mean, about some of those senators that and the way they voted, and you're talking about issues of corruption. I mean, I'm not sure you have any evidence to support what you just said, because these are the integrity of some people that this statement will impugn.
I do have. Because after this, I went to the Senate and spoke to my leaders, and I was told what happened. It was at that particular meeting that they were held record on the 14th, organized by Senator Kabiru Gaya, as he ran, when he saw that Senator Baribe had made a lot of progress in convincing senators to actually back electronic voting.
We're due for a break, Dr. Ononuju.
Yeah. All those things occurred.
This is the worry of the PDP governors. And let me read it out to you. It's about defections of some of their governors. They say that The meeting condemned once again the use of underhand tactics of arm twisting some PDP governors and other stakeholders to join the APC, a political party that has wrecked Nigeria's economy, turned Nigeria into a killing field, and has nothing to offer Nigerians but mystery and bad governance. They went further to say the governors condemned Mr. President and APC for turning the presidential villa that belongs to all Nigerians into the APC headquarters, where coerced PDP members are being paraded at intervals. Let me begin again with Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed. Your reaction to the statement of the PDP. It does look like some kind of frustration coming from the PDP. Is it?
Well, I think it's just we are beginning to witness the beginning of mutual destruction, which is a good thing for Nigerians. If governors have evidence that State House, the villa, is using extra legal and political muscle to tear away governors from their parties, I wish they would share some of this information with us. There have been defections on both sides. Like I said earlier on, we're dealing with one and the same thing. We've had governors from the other party who a governor just changes dress and comes back and sits and says, I'm APC. And the next day, a governor will also defect and says, I'm PDP. These are the same people. This is, in the last 16 years, or since 1999, it's these two parties that have destroyed this country, and they're playing the same game all over again. We're not impressed by arguments that somebody is poaching somebody's governors or legislators. They have been doing this thing for a long time. They will continue to do this thing. What we're witnessing is the beginning of the destruction of these two parties. And believe me, honestly, I think it's a good thing for this country. It's good for Nigerians to recognize and to understand that what these two parties are focusing on is not the insecurity, is not poverty, is not joblessness, it's not the state of the country, it's not about amending the constitution to fix this country. It's about power. It's about getting power in 2023, irrespective of how they do it. And this is a good thing. They will continue to poach each other's people. It is that easy to poach a governor, for goodness sake. You get millions of voters who say, we're voting for you and your party, and the governor simply changes his mind and says, okay, I don't want your party anymore. I'll continue to keep the power. These are the same people. How many, close to 80% of our politicians today have been in one of these two parties or more. Close to 80% of them. What does that tell you about the morality of these people? They don't consider the democratic process anything. They don't have respect for Nigerians. They don't have respect for values. They don't have a moral standard. Tomorrow, the same people who are complaining among the PDP governors, tomorrow you could see somebody else defect. And you can either have you could also have 2 or 3 APC governors defecting to PDP. This is the class of people that are telling us they will lead this country through a major process of reconstruction after President Buhari finishes wrecking this country. Are these the kind of people who will come back to us next year and start telling us to trust them again with power? These same people who are just simply shedding crocodile tears because right now they're on the losing end and they want us to trust them. What is the PDP as a party said to us about how it is going to deal with insecurity? What did the PDP say? What is it going to do about bringing the different parts of this country together? What has the PDP said about where is its economic blueprint? To do with unemployment, to do with the rebuilding of the Nigerian economy. All they're interested in is 2023. What are you going to do with 2023? Because between now and 2023, in 1.5 years' time, APC would have completely wrecked this country. You are going to take over a country that has been effectively destroyed by a party that has been substantially produced by PDP. And what are you going to do with this country? How are you going to fix this country? Where is your blueprint for what happens to Nigeria in 2023? So for me, what the PDP is saying is exactly what APC would say if it's on the other, if the shoe is on the other foot. This country is in trouble, not so much because of banditry and kidnapping, but precisely because of this kind of people. From the president down to the governors to the National Assembly, every politician is ripping Nigerians off. And the earlier we recognize this, the better.
All right. Mr. Jiriojo, your take on this PDP's statement that they've turned the villa into the APC headquarters?
Anyway, it didn't come to me as a surprise, actually, that these allegations are being made by the PDP. Again, looking at 16 years of PDP in government, did they fare any better? I recall writing an article in 2014, December 21, 2014. You recall that there was a fundraiser organized by PDP for the re-election of then Dr. Goodluck Jonathan. Where was it held? It was held in the banquet hall of the presidential villa. And I wrote that it's an abuse, it's a gross abuse of power. There is Transcorp, there are other hotels, there are other venues. You could go to International Conference Center, but why did you have to do a fundraiser using the state resources, which is not available to all the other political parties? And then they say, they claim they realized 21 billion or something, which is a clear breach of campaign finance regulations. Because the law says no individual should donate more than 1 million naira to the campaign fund of a candidate. And you have corporate bodies donating in billions. So it's a same of same, like Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed have said. It's same of same. Is the difference between APC and PDP is that you find between 6 and half a dozen. And I mean, I don't want to go into name calling. You know, as Dr. Ahmed said, the bulk of the people in APC today were former members of PDP. So who is fooling who? Tomorrow, some of the characters that have come up with this communique, you find them taking shelter under APC, and they will sing a different tune. It's all about interest, protection of interest. They have jointly ruined this country for us. APC, PDP, ADGA, I don't believe in any one of them, because in their own respective enclaves, in their own respective states, have they shown leadership? Have they shown things that are different from what we see at other layers of governance? So if we are just, because we are out of power, or because we are no longer controlling the center, we now demonize the other party, only for us to get back to power and do exactly, if not worse things, than the parties you took over from are doing. I mean, I'm not saying this because I'm on here. I've documented this in many of my opinion articles in my column in the Punch newspapers. And they're there on the net for people to read where I stand on many of these issues. So when it comes to partisan interest, I wrote in my column last week that the title of the article is How Unscrupulous Politicians Have Destroyed Nigeria's Democracy. Unscrupulous, we run democracy without Democrats. That's what Professor Claudake said. That how do you expect to have good governance, to have development, when you are running democracy without Democrats? People who are not democratic in their thoughts and deeds. Look at what's happening at local government level. Tell me which of the states of PDP could say, no, I've given autonomy to my local government. I have allowed unfettered local government elections. The funds meant for local government, I don't touch it. They all do same of same. So they should not cry when the head is off, because they are also part of the problem that we currently are trying to solve.
Dr. Ononuju, your own view on this matter?
Well, I disagree with them. The PDP and the APC are not the same. Under the APC, Nigeria is currently a killing field. Under the APC, the economy currently is been in 2 recessions. Under the PDP, don't forget, we took the country from dictatorship and we built the biggest and fastest growing economy in Africa. We brought Nigerians together. We tried to build an inclusive system where every part of this country had an honest sense of belonging. But the APC, because it's not a political party, it turned out, as you can see right now, as an ethnic platform that Buhari has even refused to become a Nigerian politician. Under the PDP, all our presidents, from Obasanjo to President Goodluck to Yar'Adua, were all embracing Nigeria as their primary constituency. Under President Buhari, it is now a war in the entire country between his ethnicity and the rest of Nigeria. And you can hear what the people are saying, simply because Buhari has abandoned Nigeria and abandoned the constitution. So that's why we said we needed to restructure. We did the Constitutional Conference 2014 as a way to say government is a continuum. Buhari came in and he kept it aside. What has he been doing? Implementing an ethnic agenda. So there's no way you can say the PDP and APC are the same. Who in PDP would have kept quiet if this was going on? I remember when President Goodluck would do something, you will hear someone like Kwankwaso threatening him and saying, even though they are in the same party. Today, who in the APC raises his voice to Buhari? Now we've had an aircraft shot down of the Nigerian Air Force in Zamfara State. Who among the APC leaders have said anything? We've had personnel killed in Zamfara, 13 of them. Who in the APC have raised his voice? And Buhari is doing all this. We are here, and Buhari goes to the east to do false flag operation. Who in his party has criticized it? All of them are afraid of him. In the PDP, nobody did any of that. The PDP embraced the concept.
Dr. Onanuju, as much as, I mean,
yes,
we have freedom to express our views, let's just be careful with the use of the language, especially when you're not certain about some of these things that you have said, and you're mentioning names, and you're linking on the name of the #1 citizen, the president, linking it to issues of the killing. Let's just be watchful of the
I
of the
say
use of
that
language.
because the buck stops at the president's desk, and we have seen how very friendly he has been with the Fulani bandits. That is nothing hidden. So, and everybody's complaining. The PDP government never ever did such a thing. Today, under President Buhari, we are complaining. There are killings everywhere. Hausas are being killed in the north. People are being killed in Benue State. People, as I'm talking to you, 77 villages are sacked in Plateau State. It never happened under the PDP. As I speak to you, everybody are building militias because of Buhari's policy. No PDP government ever did that. And that's why our governor said, since it is this way, that the presidency, after the 8 years of Buhari in the north, should come to the south. And the PDP agrees with that. And that's where we're going.
You did not touch on the matter that I wanted you to touch on, which is the criticism of your governors saying that the APC is taking their members and have turned the villa to the APC headquarters. Just in 30 seconds, because we need to take a few other issues.
I said that earlier in regards to our senators. What the governors are saying is true. The presidency is using rough hand tactics to strong arm both our senators and our governors away. The same crisis that I talked about the senators was exactly what they visited on our governors, opening files of EFCC on them, and then out of fear, they will not come over to the other place. As their former chairman said, whatever your sins are, the minute you cross into the APC, those sins are forgiven. This is the same thing. They are using the anti-corruption fight as a recruitment platform for the APC.
But you didn't, you didn't respond to what Mr. Ojo said. Mr. Ojo said, during the PDP government, the banquet hall of the presidential villa was used for fundraising. And whatever is happening now equates to perhaps what happened under your government. Mr. Ojo made that reference.
That is not true. Using of the banquet hall is different from what my governor said. My governor said that the presidential villa is now being used to parade our governors, and then from there all sorts of things are extracted of them. That's what they said. They're not talking about the banquet hall. The banquet hall, yeah, could have been used under the PDP for that and other events like Christmas Carol. But
was he right?
Governors
but was he right
people,
to have used the banquet hall? That's the question. Isn't it the same moral issue that have been brought up, that the APC's, the villa has now been turned into the APC headquarters? And again, when you say they are opening EFCC file, if you don't have any crime, should you be afraid? Isn't that supposed to be the question here?
I agree with you if you don't have any EFCC file, but you know very well it is very difficult to be in political office without having problems, you know, being thrown at you. Even some of them are not fully investigated. They simply will tell you this is this, this is that. If you agree, we will stop investigation. If you agree, we'll stop prosecution. And before you know it, such strong arm tactics do work. They work. They have worked in the issue of the senators.
Yeah, we
they are
have
also working in the issue of the governors.
Yeah, I would like us to take another round to get the views of my guests in Abuja studio. Let me just put one more issue, that is of the issue of security, or perhaps the issue of economy, issues of unemployment. Let's take unemployment, economy and security. Let's go through it. So I'll just get a final view on this one. So the economy first. They said that on the economy, the meeting admonished the APC federal government to collaborate more with state governments to stem the unemployment scourge affecting the youth of Nigeria through technology and increased production in all fields of endeavor. They went further to say that they through technology and increased production in all fields of endeavor, reiterating that government should stop paying lip service on the ease of doing business as foreign direct investments have continued to fall, partly due to obstacles placed on foreign companies wishing to invest in Nigeria. A glaring example is that of Facebook, who insisted on investing in Nigeria rather than Ghana and is being frustrated by regulatory authorities. I think we should get a minute each of my guests on this one. Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed, what's your view on this one? We just have a minute each for our final thoughts.
I think the PDP is being poorly represented, both by the governors and, with due respect to my brother here, by him speaking for PDP. PDP can do a lot better than this. Look, this is a party. Some of the governors who attended the meeting in Bauchi State were the same governors who collaborated, who stood up with the APC governors a few weeks ago and demanded that power should shift to the south. PDP governors lined up and said, bring power to the south. There's absolutely no difference between these two. There's nothing going on in the PDP or in the APC that should tell Nigerians that there is genuine concern about the economy. For instance, why doesn't the PDP, if I was advising the PDP, and I wouldn't do it the same way as Dr. Kach is doing, with due respect to him, I would do it in a completely different way. I would spend my time and my energy to do a thorough analysis on what is wrong, including what the governors are doing, because they are major culprits in this country, PDP and APC governors. They are destroying the economy. There's a lot of things that are doing wrong, in terms of making unemployment worse and keeping more and more young people out of jobs, out of businesses, out of what they have the same problem. You wouldn't find a single difference between an APC governor and a PDP governor when it comes to the manner in which they operate.
Doctor,
if the PDP ever hopes to run this country again, they need to raise their game. They need to tell Nigerians how they will do things different from the way APC is doing. They are not doing that. They have no thinkers. They don't have people who are articulating their position, and therefore they can line up tomorrow. They can stand up tomorrow as Southern governors, irrespective of party, APC or PDP, and then they can come to Bauchi and sit down and speak as PDP governors. That kind of immorality is that kind of thing. How do Nigerians take these people seriously?
Yeah, so Doc, we have just less than 2 minutes to go, and I'd love Mr. Ojo and Dr. Ononuju to split that, just in about 50 seconds each. Mr. Ojo, let me get your view, and I'll get Dr. Ononuju's view on this, just in 50 seconds each, please.
Well, for me, again, the fact that a party does not rule at the center should not make it to be bereft of giving a model governance at their state level. After all, there are 12, 13 governors still left in PDP. I believe that, one, I'm in agreement with their position on the issue of unemployment. They can collaborate with federal government to substantially reduce unemployment in this country. Because that the statistics, NBS, Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, unemployment figure is very staggering. I think it was put at 33% of the population. And we are talking of a lot of underemployment. So I would want to see a blueprint of PDP coming public to say, let's do it this way, this is it, going to meet the president, and we don't have to fight.
You've eaten into Dr. Onanuju's time.
Be the next party to rule.
You've eaten into Dr. Onanuju. Now Dr. Onanuju does not have more than 30 seconds. Dr. Onanuju, 30 seconds so we can close.
All I would need to tell you is, if you want to predict the future, study the past. In the past, the PDP have been fantastic drivers of economic growth. Check most of the PDP states. The governors are doing very, very well. We are the party that Nigerians remember that took this country to becoming the best economy in Africa, to becoming the fastest growing middle class in the entire Africa, and also the party that makes Nigeria the best.
Dr. Onanuju, thank you so much. Mr. Jide Ojo, appreciate your timing. And Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed, what a time with the three wise men. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight on these very issues. This conversation will continue tomorrow. There's one person that I'm going to bring on the show tomorrow. You need to hear his view on some of these issues. But that's how we draw the curtains of the program tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. Bye-bye.